The tension between who you actually are and what the world around you is willing to see has been exhausting in a way that is hard to explain to people who have not lived it. Those words appeared on Meghan Markle's Instagram story just days ago, shared from an astrology account she apparently follows religiously. The Duchess of Sussex posted this horoscope reading to her millions of followers on April 25th, framing herself once again as the misunderstood victim of forces beyond her control. Your confidence took hits it had no business taking. The post continued, you questioned your creative direction, your spotlight, your worth. April 25th, the pressure lifts. You get space to just exist without fighting for it. Let that sink in for a moment. A woman who married into the most famous family on earth, who received a multi-million-dollar Netflix deal, who launched a lifestyle brand with celebrity endorsements, wants us to believe that the universe itself has been conspiring against her for 7 long years. The horoscope promises Liberation Day has finally arrived, that the cosmic pressure is lifting at last. Meghan shared this content deliberately, knowing exactly how it would read to anyone paying attention. She positioned herself as someone who has been fighting simply to exist, as though the world refused to see the real her. But here is where the story takes a turn that Meghan perhaps did not anticipate. There exists a rather major problem with this victim narrative, one that the Duchess seems to have conveniently forgotten. Before she became the wounded Leo seeking cosmic validation on Instagram, Meghan Markle made a very public religious commitment. Is Meghan Markle officially now peddling paganism as she posts astrology stories on her Instagram? That is the big question. She chose to be baptized into the Church of England, embraced by the Archbishop of Canterbury himself, with holy water from the River Jordan poured over her head. That ceremony carried specific vows and beliefs that stand in direct contradiction to the astrology content she now promotes to millions of followers. The woman sharing horoscopes about Uranus transits once knelt before the highest religious authority in England and pledged her faith to Christianity. Understanding what Meghan actually posted requires us to examine the specific language she amplified and the account she chose to raise. The horoscope came from an account called Spirit Daughter run by a Las Vegas-based astrologer named Christina Antuna. This is not some obscure corner of the internet. Antuna describes herself as your ride or die astrologer and markets her content as astrology for hot people. Her Instagram boasts approximately 180,000 followers and celebrity endorsements from the likes of Jessica Alba and Kerry Washington. The specific post Meghan shared targeted for zodiac signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, claiming they were ending the hardest 7 years of their lives. The language was carefully crafted to validate anyone reading it. Notice the framing here. The horoscope does not suggest you made poor choices or perhaps misjudged situations. Instead, external forces attacked your confidence in ways it had no business experiencing. You questioned your creative direction, your spotlight, your worth not. Because those doubts might have been warranted, but because the universe placed unfair obstacles in your path. The astrologer explained in her caption that Uranus and Taurus dealt these signs some of the toughest years of their lives. Everything you relied upon, whether that was a job, a spouse, even your faith, was tested and flipped upside down over and over these last 7 years. Meghan latched on to this narrative immediately because it perfectly absolves her of any responsibility. Her Netflix projects underperformed not because of creative missteps, but because Uranus was in the wrong position. Her Spotify deal collapsed not because she failed to deliver promised content, but because cosmic forces were working against her. The horoscope functions exactly like a fortune cookie designed only to validate, never to challenge. Antuna celebrated after Meghan shared her post, writing that the Queen herself has been public proof of this transit, hers to reigning again. That phrase alone reveals how Meghan's inner circle views her not as a former working royal who stepped away, but as a queen temporarily displaced from her rightful throne. But the real story here extends beyond one Instagram post. Meghan also shared content from another account called Astrology is for Everyone, and this is where the situation grows considerably darker. The content on that account ventures into territory that should alarm anyone familiar with Meghan's supposed Christian faith. Territory that the Duchess apparently finds perfectly acceptable to promote to her audience. Now, Meghan, unfortunately, you've knocked other people's confidence. You've sent people to rehab because of your bullying behavior. So, all of this astrology isn't going to explain away your actual behavior. To understand why Meghan's astrology embrace carries such significance, we need to travel back to March of 2018. A secret ceremony took place at St. James's Palace Chapel Royal, one of the most sacred spaces in British royal history. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, personally administered the sacrament of baptism to Meghan Markle. This was not some perfunctory requirement imposed upon her by palace protocol. Kensington Palace confirmed at the time that converting to join the Church of England was entirely voluntary. Meghan did not have to become Anglican to marry Prince Harry. The Church of England would have performed the wedding ceremony regardless of her religious affiliation. She chose this path deliberately and publicly. The ceremony lasted approximately 45 minutes, conducted in the evening with only a handful of intimate guests present. Prince Charles and Camilla attended, signaling the significance the royal family placed on this moment. Holy water from the River Jordan was used in the baptism, a detail that carries deep meaning for Christians worldwide. The River Jordan is where Jesus himself was baptized by John the Baptist, marking the beginning of his earthly ministry. Using water from that specific location represents a connection to the foundations of Christian faith itself. The baptism included confirmation, meaning formally accepted the beliefs and teachings of the Church of England. She made vows renouncing evil and turning to Christ. These are not casual promises made to satisfy royal tradition. They represent a spiritual commitment recognized by one of the oldest Christian institutions in the world. Archbishop Welby had spent weeks providing Meghan with guidance on the rites and sacraments of the Church. He invested personal time preparing her for this moment, believing she genuinely wished to embrace the Anglican faith. This context matters enormously when we examine her current behavior. Meghan did not merely attend a few church services to please her future in-laws. She underwent full baptism and confirmation with the highest-ranking religious official in England presiding. She received instruction in Christian doctrine. She made public vows of faith. The ceremony was treated as genuine and major by everyone involved, from the Archbishop to the future King of England, who stood witness. 7 years later, that same woman shares content from accounts promoting witchcraft and positions herself as a devote of astrology. The transformation would be unremarkable for someone who never claimed religious commitment, but Meghan claimed it loudly and deliberately when it served her purposes. The day after news of her baptism leaked to the press, Meghan appeared in public wearing a cross bracelet. Royal watchers and fashion commentators immediately noted the jewelry choice, interpreting it as a deliberate signal of her new Christian identity. The optics were unmistakable. Meghan Markle hiding behind astrology to make a sick new Instagram dig, while also suggesting that we're about to see the real Meghan rather than the total cow that we've heard about. Here was the American actress demonstrating her devotion to her newly adopted faith, wearing religious symbolism where cameras could capture it. The bracelet appeared designed to communicate something specific to the watching world. This moment deserves scrutiny because it establishes a pattern that defines much of Meghan's public behavior. When Christianity served her narrative, she performed Christianity. She accepted baptism in sacred water, stood beside archbishops, and wore crosses for photographers. The religious identity helped position her as someone transforming herself to join the royal family, adapting respectfully to British traditions. She could point to the baptism as evidence of her commitment, proof that she took her new role seriously. Charles and Camilla's attendance at the ceremony reinforced its importance. The future King of England witnessed this woman pledge her faith, presumably believing those pledges genuine. The intimate nature of the gathering suggested this was not mere formality, but meaningful spiritual initiation. Everyone present treated the moment as authentic, a real conversion rather than performance for palace approval. Fast forward several years, and that same cross bracelet has not been spotted in any recent appearance. The religious symbolism that once served Meghan's purposes has quietly disappeared from her wardrobe. In its place, music. She now amplifies content that her baptismal faith explicitly condemns. She promotes astrologers and shares material from accounts that openly reference witchcraft and dark feminine energy. The contrast between 2018 Meghan and 2025 Meghan reveals either a genuine spiritual transformation or more likely evidence that the original performance was exactly that. One could perhaps excuse someone for drifting from religious practice over time. Many people undergo baptism with sincere intentions and later find their faith waning, but Meghan has not simply grown distant from Christianity. She actively promotes its antithesis, while maintaining access to platforms and legitimacy that her royal connection provides. The cross bracelet photograph lives in archives where anyone can find it, permanent evidence of the identity she once performed for public consumption. Beyond Spirit Daughter, Meghan amplified content from Astrology is for everyone, an account that ventures into territory far more disturbing than standard horoscope predictions. The woman behind this account does not merely discuss planetary alignments and zodiac compatibility. Her content includes explicit references to witchcraft, pagan ritual, and what she terms dark feminine energy. One post that drew particular attention included the statement, "If you are a real witch, make sure your Aries new moon intention is to see 62 million go up in flames." Let that phrase settle for a moment. An account promoted by the Duchess of Sussex published content about being a real witch and setting intentions for mass destruction. Whether meant metaphorically or not, this represents a dramatic departure from the Christianity Meghan supposedly embraced. The aesthetic of this account features imagery associated with pagan practice, including ritualistic dancing and invocations that would alarm any practicing Christian. Multiple posts discuss embracing witchcraft as personal empowerment, framing it as reclamation rather than something to avoid. Meghan chose to share content from this account to her millions of followers. Nobody forced her hand. She scrolled through Instagram, encountered this material, and decided her audience should see it, too. Music. This represents a deliberate editorial choice, an endorsement of the account and its message. When someone with Meghan's platform amplifies content, that amplification carries weight and consequence. Spirit Daughter, while less explicitly occult, still promotes practices that Christianity views as incompatible with faith. The account encourages followers to structure their lives around planetary movements, to make decisions based on zodiac readings, to view their identities through astrological frameworks. Christina and Tuna has built a large following by convincing people that celestial bodies determine their personalities, relationships, and futures. Her book and podcast extend this influence further, reaching audiences who might never visit a fortune teller, but feel comfortable engaging with astrology as lifestyle content. The appeal of these accounts is not difficult to understand. They offer validation without accountability. Every reading confirms that you are special, that your struggles stem from external forces, that your redemption approaches on a cosmically predetermined schedule. Nobody consulting these horoscopes ever reads that their problems result from their own choices. The system exists to flatter and reassure, never to challenge or convict. For someone like Meghan, who consistently frames herself as victim rather than agent, this worldview provides perfect ideological cover. The theological problems with Meghan's astrology embrace are not matters of interpretation or denominational dispute. Scripture addresses divination and occult practice with unusual clarity and consistency. Deuteronomy 18:10-12 states explicitly that no one should be found among you who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or a spiritist. The passage concludes that anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Leviticus 19 verse 26 commands simply not to practice divination or seek omens. The book of Acts chapter 16 tells the story of Paul encountering a slave girl possessed by a spirit of divination. Rather than celebrating her supernatural abilities, Paul casts the spirit out, treating it as demonic presence rather than divine gift. The girl had earned her owners considerable money through fortune-telling, demonstrating that profit and popularity do not legitimize practices that Scripture condemns. The Church of England, the institution that baptized Meghan Markle, maintains positions consistent with these scriptural foundations. Anglican teaching does not embrace astrology as compatible with Christian faith. The baptismal vows Meghan took included renouncing evil and turning to Christ, language that historically encompasses rejection of occult and divinatory practices. Justin Welby did not baptize Meghan with the understanding that she would later promote witchcraft-adjacent content to millions of followers. This matters because Meghan's public baptism created certain reasonable expectations. She presented herself as someone embracing Christianity, and the church welcomed her on those terms. The archbishop invested time instructing her in faith. The future king witnessed her vows. Holy water from Christianity's most sacred river touched her forehead. These elements combined to create a public statement of religious identity that Meghan now contradicts through her social media activity. Faith is personal and Meghan's spiritual journey is her own business. That argument might hold weight if Meghan had quietly drifted from church attendance, but she actively promotes content opposed to her stated faith using platforms she gained through her royal connection. She cannot simultaneously claim the legitimacy of her Church of England baptism while amplifying accounts that celebrate witchcraft. The contradiction is not private. It plays out before millions of followers who see a woman apparently unbothered by the conflict between her performed and actual beliefs. The specific appeal of astrology to someone with Meghan's psychology deserves examination. These horoscope systems require intense self-focus. Every reading centers the individual, examining how planetary movements affect your life, your relationships, your career, your emotions. The entire framework validates narcissistic engagement with the world. You become the protagonist around whom cosmic forces arrange themselves, either assisting or obstructing your personal journey. Compare this with Christian teaching, which consistently directs attention outward. Scripture emphasizes serving others, denying self, considering others more major than yourself. The central Christian narrative involves God becoming human and sacrificing himself for others, the opposite of self-centered spirituality. Jesus repeatedly instructed followers to love neighbors, care for the poor, and put others first. This framework offers little appeal to someone whose primary concern is her own victimhood and vindication. The horoscope Meghan shared functions exactly as one would expect for someone seeking external validation of internal grievances. It told her that outside forces attacked her confidence unfairly, that she questioned her worth because of cosmic circumstances rather than her own actions. The reading promised liberation was arriving on schedule, not because she had done any work to earn it, but because Uranus was finally moving into a different position. This represents spirituality as consumer product designed to make the purchaser feel good rather than challenge them to grow. Observers have noted that Meghan consistently blames external factors for her difficulties. The palace failed to protect her. The British media attacked her unfairly. The royal family refused to understand her. The Netflix executives did not appreciate her vision. The American public has not yet recognized her true worth. Astrology fits perfectly into this worldview because it provides cosmic confirmation that outside forces indeed conspire against her. She does not need to examine her own choices when planetary alignments explain everything. The horoscope even mentions spouse as something potentially destabilized during this 7-year period. Dan Watton noted this detail, pointing out that Meghan selected a reading that seemed to assign blame to Harry for her struggles. Whether consciously or not, she chose to amplify content suggesting her husband might be part of the problem. Given persistent reports of tension in the Sussex marriage, this detail takes on additional significance. The contrast between Meghan's self-focused spirituality and the service-oriented approach of other royals remains striking. On the very day Meghan posted about her difficult 7 years, Catherine, Princess of Wales, attended Anzac Day commemorations. While one woman centered her own suffering, another honored soldiers who gave their lives for their countries. The visual and spiritual difference between these approaches captures something core about why public opinion has diverged so dramatically between these two women. Even Meghan's closest associates appear to be growing weary of her relentless self-promotion. Serena Williams, frequently cited as one of Meghan's best friends, recently posted an unboxing video of As products that commentators immediately identified as shady. The tennis legend received a box of Meghan's chocolates and candles, apparently part of a celebrity influencer outreach campaign. What followed was either a deliberately dismissive response or a stunning failure of basic promotional competence. Williams appeared on camera with chocolates scattered messily, noting that she does not even like chocolate while grudgingly admitting she had been eating them. "I debuted it," she said of the packaging, gesturing to the chaotic state of the unboxed products. Her endorsement carried all the enthusiasm of someone completing an obligation they would rather avoid. She held up candles without opening them, mentioned she could not pronounce some of the scent names, and wrapped up with a perfunctory expression of love. The video was filmed, edited, and posted in this condition. Serena Williams has been a professional athlete and public figure for decades. She understands how media works. She knows that recording devices allow for multiple takes and that messy presentations can be redone neatly. She chose to post this version. Scattered chocolates and lukewarm endorsement intact. Multiple commentators on social media immediately noted that this felt like deliberate shade. A friend going through the motions of support without providing actual enthusiasm. Dan Wooten observed that if you ask friends to promote your product, you expect them to present it favorably. Williams basically created an advertisement for why nobody should purchase as ever products. She demonstrated disinterest, inability to describe the items properly, and general chaos that reflected poorly on the brand. If a publicist had staged this video to undermine Meghan's launch, they could not have done better than what her supposed best friend delivered voluntarily. The pattern suggests exhaustion among those who have been asked repeatedly to support Meghan's ventures. Williams has appeared alongside Meghan at various events, been cited as part of her inner circle, and presumably receives regular requests to amplify Sussex content. At some point, even loyal friends grow tired of promotional obligations for products and causes that seem designed primarily to serve one person's ego. The messy unboxing video may represent the limits of friendship when one party constantly demands support without offering equivalent return. This brings us back to where we started, to that Instagram post claiming the tension between who you actually are and what the world around you is willing to see has been exhausting. Meghan shared these words believing they captured her experience as a misunderstood figure fighting against unfair perception. The horoscope promised April 25th would bring liberation, that cosmic pressure would finally lift, and she could exist without fighting for recognition. The deep irony is that the world does see who Meghan actually is. That recognition is precisely the problem she cannot solve. We watched her perform Christianity when palace approval required it, accepting baptism with sacred water, and wearing cross jewelry for cameras. We watched that performance fade as soon as it no longer served her purposes. Music. We now watch her promote astrology and amplify accounts celebrating witchcraft, apparently unbothered by the contradiction with her public religious commitments. The tension Meghan experiences is not the world misunderstanding her authentic self. The tension stems from Meghan's inability to reconcile her many contradictory public identities. She wants credit for her Church of England baptism while promoting its theological opposites. She demands recognition as a humanitarian while her closest friends grow visibly tired of supporting her commercial ventures. She claims victimhood while enjoying privileges most people cannot imagine. The horoscope promised that April 25th would bring space to just exist without fighting for recognition. Instead, that date brought renewed scrutiny of her hypocrisy and fresh questions about what exactly she believes. The backlash to her astrology posts suggests that the promised liberation has not arrived on schedule. Perhaps Uranus failed to check her Instagram timeline before repositioning itself. What Meghan cannot seem to grasp is that authenticity requires consistency. You cannot claim Christian faith when convenient and pagan spirituality when it suits a different mood. You cannot demand credit for transformation while demonstrating that every transformation was strategic rather than genuine. The world Meghan blames for misunderstanding her has actually been paying remarkably close attention. We remember the baptism. We noticed the cross bracelet. We observed when both disappeared from her presentation. The hardest 7 years of Meghan's life to use her horoscope's framing have been difficult primarily because she made them so. Every bridge burned was her choice. Every relationship damaged reflected her actions. Every venture that failed carried her fingerprints on the decisions that doomed it. Astrology offers her an alternative narrative where none of this is her fault. where planetary positions rather than personal choices explain her trajectory. But horoscopes cannot actually change reality. They can only provide temporary comfort while the consequences of real decisions continue accumulating. That tension she posted about the exhausting gap between her self-image and public perception will not resolve through cosmic realignment. It can only resolve when Meghan acknowledges that the world sees her accurately and that perhaps the person who most misunderstands Meghan Markle is Meghan Markle herself. The horoscope promised liberation, but the stars have no power to free someone from the prison of their own contradictions. Drop your thoughts below on whether you think Meghan's astrology embrace matters given her very public baptism into Christianity. Like this video if you found this coverage valuable. Subscribe if you want more content examining the patterns behind the headlines. And stay tuned because this story is far from finished unfolding.